But yeah, anyway, how you been?
Good, bro. Keeping things moving. Got a few projects. I feel like the field is so competitive, most people aren't doing enough. And I can speak on my circumstance. I feel like I'm at like 20% when I could be at 100 capacity. If I'm being really honest, it's like a sickening level of work ethic. And yes, you need life balance. But I think at this stage, more important than the life balance stuff is like, I think it needs to be a little unbalanced at this stage. I think once you get over that fence, you can, chill and but dude, it's so competitive. It's so competitive. And I'm not saying that to dissuade anyone, but it's like, that's the reality. That's kind of the energy that you got to have behind it.
You do a lot of stuff too. I mean, you're like for a while making short films every week, making a feature, and you still feel like you're just
Not enough. It's
not putting your
not enough.
soul into it as much as you like to be getting uh used.
Well, I mean, my soul's in it, but
I mean, just like the
we're,
actual input.
yeah, like if I'm being completely transparent with myself as to like the level of discipline you need to have, the kind of stuff you need to be doing. You know what it is, bro? It's probably not even as much a matter of discipline as it is choosing the right tasks. I have made over 100 shorts and it's been great. I've been able to sharpen my skill set, all the shit. But at short number 60, I could have pivoted in a direction of yes, I'm comfortable doing my creative thing. I like creepy shorts and I make them, I put it out. But the thing is, like, dude, why am I not in rooms with investors? Why am I not reaching out to hundreds of investors with every day with a form email that's so attractive to potential investors? Proof of concept, solid script, schedule, budget, everything. I know what to do, but it's just a matter of like executing on the right tasks. Like, what's the goal? The goal is to make a full-time living at this, of like directing features. How do you do that? You got to have investors to get shit off the ground. So I think it's just a matter of like organization and figuring out what the most like high impact tasks are that'll move the needle in the direction you want.
Yeah, 100%. It's the first week of October. I mean, do you have anything special planned for your horror film stuff?
Dude, favorite time of the year because everyone's kind of in sync. I'm not the only one obsessed with the shit. It's like I see it, everyone's got their decorations. There's this guy at the end of my girlfriend's street who goes crazy, man. I mean, his whole thing is decked out. I love
You're
it.
like, yo, you seem like you like scaring people with your house. You got to check out this movie I made, man. I
Yeah.
can scare you right back.
Bro, this guy last year, I told him kind of what I do. And he was like, oh man, like you got to check out the inside. You think this is crazy? Like, come on in. He showed me his room. His entire bedroom was like decked out and shit. That stays all year round. He's got like 100 masks. This guy's crazy.
That sounds like a killer.
Yeah. Got a few
Uh,
buddies.
100 masks,
Way.
some yeah,
Free
severed
shit.
heads.
Yeah. How about
Yeah,
you, bro? What have you been up to?
that's
Anything
good. By the
exciting?
way, on that note, I'm getting into Spooktober big time this year.
Also,
I've been talking about it with some buddies. People, my friend group in the past are way too snobby about like not doing Halloween stuff. They think they're too good for dressing up. And it's just funny, like this one podcast I listened to, the sports podcast, they're all psyched on Spooktober. So we were just like, dude, me and my buddy are like, we gotta freaking lean into it. And I always love dressing up kind of in like a funny thing. And I just love the holidays. Like, you gotta celebrate before the end of the year, man. It's all coming to a crashing end.
100%.
You gotta just make something out of nothing. And so I'm trying to get clever this year with our decorations and stuff. And I watched Sleepy Hollow last night.
Hell yeah, dude.
Got to start
Classic.
somewhere.
You're talking about the show? or is this a film?
I wish I was talking about the show on CW. That's like a procedural, like
Yeah,
like low budget sci-fi thing. Like with
right.
oh yeah, I was talking about the Tim Burton movie.
I didn't know Tim Burton made a Sleepy Hollow. Any good?
Dude, you call yourself a horror connoisseur? Are
Oh,
you kidding me?
I'm just a fraud.
Big time fraudster. Um, I don't know how I became alert to it. Like, I feel like it's one of those movies when you're a kid you want to see, and like my parents didn't let me see. But so yeah, Sleepy Hollow, classic story. But in the early 2000s, Tim Burton made a movie about it, Little Town of Sleepy Hollow and the Headless Horseman, and the guy that goes to like save them, the detective, played by Johnny Depp, young Johnny Depp. It, in retrospect, is like it's kind of like an adorable little like Tim Burton horror film. Kind of like cheeky, fun story, spooky as all hell,
Yeah,
charming and interesting. A lot of big actors in it. Michael Gambon, R&B, R.I.P. that just passed away. The English actor. Vanessa Redgrave, Vanessa Richardson. A lot of good English actors. And yeah, it's fun. You know what I hate in horror movies, I noticed? It'll go so quiet when they're talking, and then the volume when the action scene happens, like the headless horseman comes out, it goes so loud. You can never get a grip on the volume. Always changing it back.
yeah, man, and that's such a cheap. Like, obviously, you're gonna jump at that shit. It has everything to do with the sound. It's not the
It's a
scare.
tactic on their part. You're so right.
Yeah. Yo, speaking of horror films, I saw Saw 10.
No kidding.
Of course, your mother is a darling of that franchise.
Oh, there's no Saw without her.
I
Oh, they're bummed they didn't get into it. Jimmy too. He's yeah, they weren't in Saw 10. How was it?
I mean, did they watch it or not yet? Yeah, they're like, they didn't ask me. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, the thing about Saw that's so challenging is like, I mean, the people are there like just for the traps. Like they're not there for the narrative. I feel like the narrative is like the weakest part usually. Those
Yeah.
films. I'm not including your mother's performance and uncle, of course, you know.
You hold your tongue.
But yeah, I mean, dude, like parts of this was cool, but there were a lot of like long monologues and like
Oh,
you know, in like in the warehouse about like why they do what they do and
oh my gosh.
and it's just like
Well, being in this human bear trap has really got me thinking about my alcoholic grandmother.
bro,
I would sit us down
exactly.
every
Exactly,
Wednesday
dude.
to beat us. Oh my gosh, dude, that sounds like an after school special.
I mean, and it was so clear that they were trying to just fill the space. And it happened like, you know, in the second part of Act Two. And it's just like, and then they got the finish, and the finish is always like super snappy, and you got all the traps and all this shit. And then you forget.
Crescendo.
It's like made so you forget how shitty like the second half of Act Two was. But I remember that shit, bro. I remember.
Yeah. It's not lost on you.
Nah. Yeah.
Yeah, the midpoint of the movie they say is potentially the most boring part of the movie.
Yeah, I mean that's most films, right?
Yeah.
I like it is hard to nail that down. You're a writer. How do you
Yeah.
think about the midpoint? How do you keep it engaging?
Yeah, I guess that comes down to structure because after the intro and everything and the so-called hero's journey being thrust into whatever they're doing, like in the Matrix, now he's in the Matrix and at the end of the first act, like Neo's kind of sucking at everything. Like, he once they decide they're gonna go on the journey that they're reluctant to go on, now they suck at everything. And usually before the midpoint is when they've had like their first couple wins. And it's like, oh, maybe I could do this. And then the midpoint tends to be where the love story comes in, the B plot, the C plot starts to heat up a little bit. They're filling time. And
Yeah.
then things will like rekindle with the main plot that's supposed to get sick. So how do you make it interesting? I think, my dad's writing this movie right now and I'm hearing about it and stuff. You got to just make everything the best scene you've ever had. There
Right,
can't be any flaws.
right, right. And you,
Every scene. Yeah.
yeah, dude, and you can have the function of like a B story, and that's good. Like that fills it out. But I mean, just don't do the long monologue. I just have something against
I
like
think that's just bad in general. Yeah.
yeah, regardless of where it's at,
No
it's
matter
just
where it's at.
cool, bro. That shtick that you just did of like, oh, like my grandfather, like who gives a fuck? Like you don't need all of this like extra like explaining info. That's just like fuck.
Think about the best movies in your opinion. And I think for this, the sake of this, as far as like acting performances, it's generally not going to be horror films. I
Hmm.
think, well, not to
I mean,
discriminate.
that's all I watch though, so I have like limited reference.
No,
But
your favorite
go
movies
ahead.
of all time. Like I'm going to a movie that comes to my mind. I've meaning to kind of watch this lately was that Yorgos Vaughn whatever movie, The Favorite. It was kind of like Amadeus. It was about the Queen of Versailles or something in the 1700s, and there's a fun depiction of these. There's a costume drama, but it felt very like you're a fly on the wall watching these sort of modern day kooks, ridiculous people, even though they were royal and everything. But they were
Right.
really funny and interesting. And even when they're doing monologues, there's great actors. Olivia Colman plays the Queen. Emma Stone plays the young girl coming in. I might watch that after this. Joe Alwyn, good young English actor. He plays like a young, and then Nick something is like hilarious as this politician. First of all, any of these people in their acting, especially the style of this movie, it doesn't seem like acting. They're so immersed and captivated by everything that they're doing, and it's so real and funny and personable. And then when they say anything, it's a good story. It's a rich story. So it's
Mhm.
not just a monologue for the sake of being, their tell all tale. It's literally like they're it seems like it's really earned, like you really,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think the thing that like annoys me about the monologue is no one talks like that. It's not natural. You like people talk in slivers, like in half sentences. You
Yeah.
you don't like just explain your entire life story.
And it's funny as an actor too, like one of the biggest things I had to learn about genuinely doing a monologue well was that you don't approach it like you're going to do a monologue. Each thing that you say in the monologue, as you know as well, has to be like, what do you think about in real life when someone asks you like, hey, how'd you get into surfing? And I'm like, well, you try to keep it succinct.
Mm.
You're actually thinking in your mind, how can I get this message across short and sweet, and you get excited and like I'm always thinking long story short. And that's how you should be thinking in your acting too, despite what's on the page. You as an actor know you're gonna say 15 lines,
Right.
but as a character, maybe, depending on how that character approaches questions and stuff, try to bring the reality to that. But yeah, in terms of writing, bro, like what's another good? I mean, Gladiator, Maximus, he had some. I
Oh,
don't actually. He wasn't
that,
talking that much though.
yeah, that slapped though too. Like that was fucking great film.
It's a given.
Man,
But
at
do you
the end
remember?
when he like fucking like touches the soil and then he like leaves the
uh,
stadium, shows Rome.
the best monologues that come to my mind? I was just talking to my dad about that in that movie. Is Proximo, the head of the gladiators, when Maximus is a slave.
Okay.
Randomly, he gets abducted by this slave owner,
Yeah.
and the slave owner discovers that Maximus is this brilliant fighter, and he wants to mentor him, and saying, and he has this great scene where he summons Maximus to his room, and he tells him, Maximus, and played by a brilliant English actor who recently passed away, I guess, in a drinking contest. He was an old drunk. And he goes, Maximus, the king, the new king, has decided to make a year of games at the Colosseum. And being as you are such a great fighter, we're going to go there. And we're going to get you your freedom. You're going to win over the crowd. And Maximus, have you ever been to the Colosseum? You can hear the faint of the sword slicing through the air. And he goes into like this monologue describing it. And he's so immersed. It's almost, you can say he's overacting. Like some people would say he's like Jack Nicholson overacting. But like, he's so, and by the way, even when he's acting, it's like he's reacting off Maximus.
Yeah.
Maximus is kind of laughing like, oh, you're saying you knew Marcus Aurelius. I said he touched me on the shoulder once. And like, it's just real rich. Even when it's this grand film, it's a slice of life. These people are so passionate about their own lives. And this actor, dude, giving the speech about how great the Roman Colosseum is, while they're out in like the Z squad of gladiator fights out in like Morocco in the provinces, they call them.
Yeah.
I watch Gladiator probably once a week.
Such a good movie. I haven't seen it for a few years, but I fucking love that movie. Yeah, dude, I think that's the key. I think the first from a writing side, like it's got to be pertinent to the thing. Like there has to be, it can't just be like a filler. Like it can't just be like a way to give information that you don't even need. And then also,
let's say you are writing for Lifetime or a soap opera or something.
right.
You got to figure out how to make it interesting. But go on.
Well, I mean, from like an acting perspective too, like it's a great point that you got to react to everything and milk every moment, and that's your job. But I mean, all that's to say, like, if I was tasked with writing Saw 10, and I'm like, okay, these are the locations we have, and we have to be in this warehouse for this amount of time, that is kind of a tough ask of like, you're in this warehouse. I mean, I'm sure I could come up with something, but like, I mean, limited locations, limited budget. I'd be shocked if it had a limited budget because obviously,
I don't think it comes down to any of that. When it comes to the script, no matter what the scenarios are for these people to be in death-defying situations.
Yep.
It's not dissimilar to my dad writing this movie right now. He's literally a big chunk of the movie is thinking of what are the best cons. The whole movie is cons. They're making prop bets and doing these things the whole time. And in order to write them and make them believable, he has to be able to like understand the cons himself as if they're happening in real life. He's working his way through them to write them. But he's literally thinking, what is the most interesting thing for these characters? It comes down to the characters. I don't care if it's a horror movie either. Like these characters have to be interesting, as it more interesting than your next door neighbor, Yeah. And just because you're doing a horror movie doesn't change. The Exorcist, considered the best horror movie of all time, had characters that you hadn't really seen. The mom was an actress. The priest was conflicted. The young priest, all these things.
Right.
And I implore you to continue making, no matter what, human, stylistic, incredible films. So, yeah, look, you're in a warehouse, you have these things. Still comes down to what's at stake for these characters. What's it going to be like when this one woman who hates her something or hates salespeople comes up against this guy that's a degenerate salesperson or whatever, and maybe they've met one time before and now they're stuck together. What's at stake? What's similar like that as a writer in your own life? What are you interested in that would make that confrontation better? Then in a horror setting, what happens when they're put in this extreme tragic scenario that's gonna have them die in a gruesome way? Now you're getting into real stakes and everything.
Yeah, I think that's a great point of like having it being a real story. It doesn't matter if it's horror or whatever.
No, yeah.
Be this like grounded, real stakes, relationships, and even the traps for this one, like not to completely pull this film apart, but like I mean, they could have been way more creative. It was like all of them were like, oh, I got to chop off my arm. Now I got to like chop off this body part. Like it wasn't anything like the earlier Saw films. They had these really innovative traps and like they were tied to people and all this kind of stuff. It was just like kind of sloppy.
I've always thought humbly Saw was horror porn.
Yeah.
It's nothing they couldn't come up with on Fear Factor.
Yeah.
I look and like so happy for them and everything, but like it's astounding the crap that's out there these days. You see it on commercials every day from
Right.
pros.
Right.
Why isn't the level higher? What we just talked about. Great stories come from truth. And when
They
you're
do.
writing fiction, you have to insert stuff that from your real life or that you saw on TV that's like really remarkable and everything. And you
Well,
got
let's answer that question. Like, why is there so much shit at the higher level? And I think it comes down to a few things. I think it's like people get tasked with these jobs. Like some producer or studio exec would be like, oh, this is a great idea for a film. And then they might like task them with something or whatever. And then also like studio notes too. Like if there are too many cooks in the kitchen,
well,
being
I still don't know why notes are such a bad thing. Like I would think it continues to get refined and refined, which would be a good thing. I just think people's heads are up their asses.
in what way?
They're too in their little bubble
Like
and how
writers.
their system, the whole industry thinks they're so cool that they're disremoved from reality.
In like in what way?
I think they're so happy to get there that they get complacent once they get there.
Oh, okay. So you're saying like their quest for innovative, interesting new stories kind of they soften up a little bit once they're in that position.
Yeah, but now that you mention it, I mean, it's hard for me to believe that like some producer at Hulu that's hearing pitches all day isn't going to be soughting after the most innovative stuff. I mean,
Well, but maybe not because maybe I mean, they're huge on comps. And again, this is coming from someone who's like never been in the studio system. So what the fuck do I know? But like what I've heard is like you always want to have, well, it's this meets this. They're like, why? Like, why now? Like, I have some friends who have been in pitch meetings and shit, and they're like, okay, but why do we tell the story now? And like, this movie did really well. So, like, it's not as much about, oh, wow, this is a super fresh, engaging, innovative idea, unless you start getting like talent involved and get that package together and all that stuff.
I think a lot of it does become like what talent is involved.
Yeah.
But I would even think from a talent perspective, like, aren't big actors, big directors wanting to do
I'm sure. I'm
big
sure.
book and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
look at like Leo's career. Like he's only seeking after the best, like most dynamic. That new film coming out looks great, by the way. The
Killer of
Kid
the Fireman.
Flower Moon. Yeah. But if you look at it from an agent's POV, like an agent, an agent is worried about selling stuff. It's like widgets. They're like, okay, I've got this screenplay from this screenwriter who has this track record. And we've also got this talent that has this track record. Let's put them together. Now it's a package. This distribution company will want this. We get pre-sales, blah, blah, blah. Like they're not looking at it as in like, oh, let me read this now. Like, does this move me? Are these real, like original characters? They're like, oh, is this talent interested? Okay, cool. Let's do this. And then, it's a lot more just
I guess but then even the artistic film festivals and stuff, in my opinion, have crap, absolute crap. People they're like the biggest perk in Hollywood. The biggest like opportunity is working with the streamers because then they leave you alone and let you just do what you want and they can just give you money. I'm like, dude, I bet all these freaking artists, even left to their own devices, can't churn up anything. It's all shit to me.
and you think that the reasoning behind that is because of like
They're void of taste.
they're not tastemakers. They don't have the instincts for it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
So then how do they get in that position in the first place? Is it just strictly like, connects, or
Yeah.
you think
I
so
think
you
they're
think,
fool I think they're getting away with murder. They're fooling everyone.
damn dude, so you think people get in certain so you feel like the state of Hollywood right now is people get in certain positions because they know someone of someone, they get that like, family, they got the uncle who's the producer, blah blah blah. They get in this position, now they're in the system, and they were never good to begin with.
I mean, it is tough. It is tough. I don't want to. It's easy for me to just slander everyone. Like, the director who did Braveheart, he wrote and directed Braveheart. I don't think he's made another successful story since then.
Isn't that wild? Someone can make something so iconic. It's even, one of the most iconic, like instant classic horrors recently was It Follows. Did you see that?
Right. Yep.
The first half hour of that film to me is like the most brilliantly directed. Like, you get this atmosphere in that film that's so specific. I fucking love it. David Robert Mitchell, I think is his
Right.
name. And he did this other film, Under the Silver Lake, which I still have to see.
My cousin Grace is in it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it's all right.
It got mixed reviews.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, dude, I mean, imagine coming
All
out
the
with,
acting is good.
I feel like, would you be content if you came out with something like one project that was super fucking like iconic and impactful? Like, let's say you like wrote, directed, and acted in Blair Witch Project. Then like 25 years later, like you look at that director, that pair, and it's like, what have they really? They've done a few indie things. Would you be satisfied if you had one thing that made a total splash and was fucking great? I mean, it's better than being obsolete like your whole career, but
I mean, I was talking to someone about this the other day. Like, what do you want out of a career? And even if you were rich and everything, what would you want? And I'm like, for me, I want to work with talented people and do good work on a big scale and inspire people and help people and things. And so even if I had made one movie that was successful or a TV show, I'm already proud of the one pilot that I made. That even came up the other day because I was telling someone about my writing and I thought to myself like, whoa, if I hadn't had anything produced, I'd have a lot tougher time telling people that I was a writer. Like it,
yeah,
just confidence levels. But
yeah.
and I still do anyway, but at least I've had something produced and that I acted in, and I was like, I could point to. But no, short answer is like, I mean, you have to be real with yourself and say that like most people don't even get that opportunity to get close to that to have one good vehicle. But I've said for myself that I'm entrepreneurial anyway. It's not just about Hollywood stuff. I'm an entrepreneur and I want to be a creative consultant in general. Um, yeah, I'm looking in a lot of business things. What about you?
Well, I want to ask, when it comes to entrepreneurial stuff, do you have a hard time working for other people?
Uh,
Like, are you more naturally a leader, do you think?
it's a good question. I do wonder about that. I've worked a lot for other people.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see you like just be a fly on the wall, like a day at work. I'm sure everyone loves you.
Yeah,
I'm sure it goes
thanks.
great, but
I I haven't even ever been in a position where it was something where I felt like I really made a difference. Like I make a difference at my day job now in like a small way. Like if I didn't do my thing, like yeah, they'd find someone else to do it, to send out all the mail for them, like for the packages to all the clients and stuff. But to really feel like I'm critically thinking about and creatively thinking about like making the brand better, um, for someone else, that I've never taken that seriously in my life yet. I'm just starting to think about what if I had to do that as well. Um, but I wouldn't even say I'm necessarily an intense leader either for value mentality with everyone I've had on board. I mean, it's really just been Tanner and Harrison, but I tried to operate from like leading by example
Yeah.
and leading as like a partner rather than a boss. And like I just, which I don't know if they liked or disliked. Like I'm probably too passive, but
No, I think that even if you're in a boss type situation, you should always lead by example. Like think of, at least in my experience as an employee, if if I have a boss who like I really respect, who's like fucking crushing it, who's inspiring, who's like doing their thing and stuff, that speaks way more volumes than if they're like, do this, like do
well,
this.
you're a hard worker. Tanner has openly said one time we had a powwow. He's like, dude, I expect you to call me out for my behavior. Like he he like wanted to, I don't know. Yeah.
Reprimand.
Yeah, he wanted exactly. Whereas like you're probably like, oh, that's inspiring. He, when I was doing well and stuff, he since come to appreciate, but I think he was just, it was like a spotlight on how bad he was doing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And certain people like need different things too from like a boss type relationship. You
Yeah.
know, if they're underperforming and stuff. I kind of feel like it's like if you don't want to be there, like it's pretty apparent.
Prevalent. Yeah.
But
Yeah. So if I'm thinking again about going into business as well, like more business stuff to update you on that. You know,
when it comes to the business side of entertainment, like getting your own projects off the ground, obviously anyone can generate their own short and like all this stuff. You've seen your dad go through the process with the feature of investments and stuff. Didn't he already like get investors for it? Part
yeah,
two.
yeah, you got it covered.
Fucking great. And what's so great about that is he had the part one in the can.
Yep.
It did well.
Yep.
That's a proven asset. That's why it's so easy. It's like a drop in the hat.
Yes. It's a
But
card.
that, I mean, dude, that's a great reference point for you to be able to see that as an example and be like, okay, this is how. I mean, have you considered like with your own stuff, start thinking about investors or how can I get these projects off the ground myself? Or like, where are you at with that?
I'm not too nervous about raising money for stuff. Humbly, I could be eating those words once I actually have to try.
Is it because you feel like you're good in a room or you have like an undeniable product or what?
I think if the product's there, I can get to the people, the
And
money.
how do you know if the product's there? Is it your taste or is it people's response or a combination?
My taste combination, but like if I freaking love it, then full steam ahead. Now my British show, I have a partner on it. We have different tastes. I think it's still fun, but I do think that if we made that, it'd be a hit.
Yeah. And
And I
also,
could be wrong, but I would go down swinging for that thing now.
and dude, that's the level that you need for a pitch. And I haven't done a pitch. I'm starting to get to the point where it's gonna happen. Like I've got this guy that I think I touched on him last time, but this guy Brian who worked at Blumhouse the same time I was there. We're linking up, co-producing this one project, the script that I'm like proudest of. And so we're starting to get in that zone of like, okay, it's almost time. Like we're getting our materials together, budget, business plan, pitch deck, all that kind of stuff. And it and I'm like not nervous about it at all because of my confidence in the project. And I think that that is what you need in order to sell it. Like people are, I think people are looking for a certain level of confidence and energy about it. Like if you're really genuinely hyped about it and you're not just like putting on a front,
Yeah.
people can feel that and then they can start to get hyped.
Gaining experience about pitching, my rule of thumb, I've learned that as long as you're having fun talking about something, that's a big part of what you need. And then I also like with value mentality, I spoke to big fashion people with my dad one time, and my dad's like, no, no, just stay aside. Like, I'm gonna pitch it for you. And he went in and like had like super intense pitch, which was like did teach me a thing or two. I was like, whoa, like there's a respectful aspect to like having a structured pitch. But then I actually was there. My instincts told me I gotta step in and like just make this conversational and like really speak from the heart about this thing. And I think it's good to have both, but like again, for you, you're so personable and stuff. Your general rule of thumb should be that of like just love talking about your thing and try to stoke people out on it too. And like comparing it to other movies is good. Like be able to point to something successful that it's like, and of
I completely agree. We got a roach in here.
course you do. They're around the moment. Oh my
But
god.
yeah, look, dude, had to do that on the pod because otherwise,
Hollywood Beginnings people have yet to see that on the pod. That's the first time.
yes, sir. Otherwise, if that shit disappeared, I'd be thinking about it all night. So,
I get it.
dude, humble beginnings. But yeah, bro. So who were these people that you guys pitched to? It was some kind of like fashion brand,
Yeah, yeah. It was like a friend of my dad's.
and it didn't work out. Didn't bite.
They're great. We weren't officially pitching them to like help us. They were just kind of consulting me. But my dad was like, "Have it pitched down though, because they're gonna want to see how they could fit in with them," type thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. What do you got cooking this week?
Got the Valley Mentality pop-up Sunday. Would be honored if you guys came by.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday morning. We're gonna
Yep.
be in town Sunday morning, you said?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. I'll let you know. We're
Yeah.
coming back in from out of town. We're going up the coast.
Where you guys going?
We're hitting what is it? It's like Temecula,
That's San Diego.
San Diego,
I love it. Down the coast.
down the coast. That's right.
Bro,
We're
oh,
going towards Mexico.
to the Mexican aliens.
The aliens.
Yeah, did you see those like Mexican aliens that were uncovered?
No, what's that?
Oh, it's a long story. Look it up. You can make your next movie about it.
Damn, bro.
I've been Mexican aliens.
Mexican aliens.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you later. This is
Yeah,
awesome.
dude. Good luck. If I don't see you, good luck this weekend. Hope you get some sales.
Thanks, my dude.
All
Have
right,
a
bro.
great
Till next
have a
time.
good time.